For more videos and problems like this for Intro to Financial Management 301, you can check out Sarai Studies, link in the description box below. We are still in topic 8, and the second skill you have to learn is how to compute the risk of an investment. We measure risk with standard deviation, but to get to standard deviation, which is this symbol, we actually have to find variance first, which is actually standard deviation squared. And so when we get to variance, to get to standard deviation, all we have to do is square root. So S for standard deviation square root, because then the square root and the 2 cancel out and we're just left with standard deviation. But let's actually find out how to find the variance. First of all, it's a fraction. Second, what are you doing? Well, you're just taking all of your return for each year, that's what I is, minus the average return. And then you're squaring those differences so that they're all positive. And then at the end of the day, you want to sum them up. That's what this sigma means, from the first value to the ending value. And then you're just going to divide by however many returns you have minus 1. So let's try an example. At the end of the day, they're asking us what is the variance in standard deviation. So when we hear that, I came up with YP and then RADS. So think of like NYPD, the New York Police Department, but then just leave the 2 middle letters, and then RADS. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 letters. So we're going to have 6 columns, 1 for each letter. And so Y stands for year, P stands for price, R stands for return, A stands for average, D for deviation, and S for square deviation. So for the years, we have 4 years. So we're working with year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And then for those 4 years, we traded $119 in year 1, $114 in year 2, then $120 in year 3, and $140 in year 4. Now, all of this stuff is just getting this part. So the return is this. Then we will subtract the average. And then we'll find the average by just taking the average of all of the returns. And when we subtract these 2 numbers, we'll get the deviation. That's what this is. And then deviation squared is literally this squared. So again, this whole thing is just to get this part. Now the way that I remember how to calculate the returns is with no, and then I just rewrite this as NOO, and then fraction and minus. So new price minus old price divided by old price. In other words, new minus old divided by old. So let's start calculating return here. Our new price is always the one right next to it, so 119, that's the new price, and then minus the old price. But what is the old price? There is no old price because this is the first year. There's no previous price. There's no previous year, which goes to show why we always skip the first row and we always start at the second. So for this one, it's a fraction. New price is always the one right next to it, so 114. I mean, that's the new price for the year. Then minus the old price, which is 119, the price for the previous year, and then divided by the old price. So these numbers are always the same. And if you put that into your calculator, you'll get a number that you can round to 2 decimal places, and that's negative 0.04. This is the return for year 2. Now for year 3, again, it's a fraction. The new price is 120 minus the old price, which is 114, over the old price, so same numbers. If you put that into a calculator, round to 2 decimal places, you get 0.05. So this is your rate for year 3. Now for year 4, fraction, new price is always the number right next to it, so 140, write the new price for the new year, minus the old price, which is the price for the previous year, which is 120, and then you divide by that same number because they're the same. If you put that into your calculator, you get 0.17. So this is the return in year 4. Great. Now we have all of our returns, and we have to subtract the average return, but we actually have to find what is the average return. Well, we just take all of these, we add them up, and then divide by however many there are. So if we take their sum and then divide by however many there are, which is 3, we get 0.06. So that is the average return. And now we just have to take every return and subtract the average return. So when we take this minus this, we get negative 0.1. When we take this minus this, we get negative 0.01. And when we take this minus this, we get 0.11. So these are our deviations. It's how much our returns deviate from the average return. Like, how much are they going away from the norm, from the normal? And then squared deviation is just deviation squared. So we take these and we square them, and we get 0.01, 0.0001, and 0.0121. So we did all of these, and now what's left is to sum them up. That's what this means, sum them up. So when we do that, when we add up all of these, we get 0.0222, and then we just have to divide by however many there are. There are 3, and then minus 1, and when we do that, we get 0.0111. And that is our variance. But we want also our standard deviation, and standard deviation is just this. So if we want to just get this by itself, how about we just square root? So S for standard deviation, S for square root, to get the standard deviation so that we can get rid of the 2 and we're left with that. And when we do that, we take the square root of that, we get 0.1054. And those are your answers. This is your standard deviation, this is your variance. Now, if you didn't round at all, because here we rounded to 2 decimal places and so did we over here, and here 4 decimal places, then you would have gotten 0.0109 for your variance, and here you would have gotten 0.1045 for your standard deviation. And just a note, if you're ever getting a negative here, you're doing something wrong, because when you square something, you can never get a negative. So that means in your calculator, for example, over here, you would have done just this squared, and that's wrong because you need to do the whole thing squared. Because if you just do this squared, it's only squaring the 0.1, and then you're going to be left with a negative 0.01. So make sure you put parentheses, square the whole thing. And that's it for this video. In the next video, I'll show you what to do when they give you the returns instead, and then how to go from there. I'll see you in the next. Bye.